folks online know when to come back on.
25 minutes?
25 minutes. So if it's
We're gonna call
8:40,
stuff.
so if it's 8:40, we can then get like 9:05. You want to start
Okay, the Zoom part,
the Zoom part?
we'll be back in this room at 9:05.
All right. So Sydney, if you don't mind, since we are officially live, and let me just get myself doing all the right things here. Uh, if we can go ahead, Sydney, and just call the meeting to order at 8:41 and establish a quorum.
Yes, April 21st, I would like to call this meeting of the Perry Street Prep Board of Trustees to order.
Perfect. And we do have a quorum. And so for folks, we have Andrew, Shannon, and Kelly online. We have Sydney, Brandon, and Aisha here in person. And so Rachel, I'm gonna let I think the first agenda item, if I get off my head, was to approve the minutes from February. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from February?
So moved.
So moved by Brandon. Is there a second? Second by Sydney. So those minutes will be approved. So we're gonna go ahead and do the classroom walkthroughs. And for folks online, if you want to turn off your video, do whatever you need to do at work or at home. We're gonna come back on at like 9:05. Rachel, does that work? Perfect.
We should have joined at 9:05.
Perfect. All right. Thank you all. We'll be back.
Hallway, middle school.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
As usual.
All right, welcome back, everyone. The team here is just coming back.
So important. Yeah.
I'm not
Oh.
That's
old. Around 12:30 is gonna get wild.
I'm navigating way too many screens this morning. All right, so we've got Shannon online, we have Alicia online, Andrew and Kelly. And then here in person, we've got Aisha, Sydney, and Brandon, and then Danielle, McCaskill, and Rachel. So they just got to finish the classroom walkthroughs. So I don't know, Rachel, if there's anything you all want to share for the rest of the board of what you guys got to see, or if anybody else wants to share anything for those who could not join.
Oh, one thing I did want to say is that the first time, when we first started walking through, we were going through our self-contained classrooms. And I wanted the board members to see like how well they're run. I was actually showing off those teachers so they could see what self-contained is supposed to look like when you walk into a school. Also that we are considering to open up another self-contained classroom for next school year, because of course that happens by word of mouth, so everyone knows the parish needs a school for students who are struggling in that way. So next school year, we're looking to open up another self-contained, because our current self-contained classrooms are filled to capacity. Which is not a complaint, which we are totally capable and able to serve all of those students. So just an FYI, that's how we started the tour. Then we went to middle school. I paid all of them to act like they were acting. But we went to middle school and went inside of each of those classrooms so they could just see like what the middle school is going, what the structure of learning kind of looks like in middle school, the small groups, and in some classes were whole groups. So yeah.
Oh, hi, you guys.
Sorry, I'm trying to turn this so that we can see that and trying to
Yes.
navigate all the screens. So thank you for that. So real quick, just because this is always important, we're going to start off with the charter goals. Most of you should have seen an email from the charter board back in March. It would have come from Melody Sampson, which is the mid-year compliance report. And one of the things that that report does is for every charter school talk, it looks at the charter goal. So this is a screenshot of that. And just reiterating that Perry Street last year was a level 2 strong performance. And you can see that the table that the PCSB shared with the school, it said that the school in 24-25 met its goals. And so again, just a reminder, since that is ultimately the most important thing in terms of charter outcomes and the school's charter, is ensuring the school is meeting its charter goals. And so the school so far has met its charter goals every single year. And the school next year, so in school year 26-27, as a reminder, will not get a report card score, as will all charter schools, because we're transitioning to a new state test next year. And so 25-26 this school year, we will get charter goal evaluation. In 26-27, we will not. And that is true for all charter schools. And then in 27-28, it will be back up, the charter review will be back up with the charter board. And so we're on track because we have met goals so far every year. Any questions about that? All right, so we're gonna go now to ops and finance, and Andrew and Kelly were wonderful yesterday, spending some time with us on ops in a finance meeting and talking about a lot of finance things. So Andrew and Kelly, please feel free to jump in at any point here. One of the things we looked at yesterday in the finance committee was just contract renewals. The board does not approve contract renewals, but the board does look at contract renewals. So far this spring season, we have an EdOps contract that will be getting renewed, no changes, a DNS contract. We did just renew the insurance last week, which came at a 6% increase, which is pretty standard right now. Danielle right now is working on the new food vendor contract because the school currently uses Genuine Foods. That contract is required to be rebid every 5 years by the Department of Agriculture. So the school right now is going through the bidding process, and you have the tasting Wednesday? Yesterday. And so you want to talk about that tasting or how that went?
It's really nice. A lot of this we did about 20 students came from grades 2nd through 8th, and it was 9 vendors from just around different companies that do charter, some do charter in public. And the kids got to taste and go around and do the different foods and meals, was breakfast and lunch, and then they would rate them based on if they liked it, didn't like it, was able to leave comments if they wish that this was their meals for lunch next year, if they didn't. And then I'll have a meeting in the coming weeks and they will like give us like the charts and all the aggregated data for their taste of.
Was there a clear favorite among the kids?
Red rabbit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, all these vendors put out their best on these.
Everyone was texting me about Red Rabbit.
Yeah.
And I said, you all need to go directly to the school at
Yeah.
12:30 and eat the lunch with
That
the
they
kids.
cooked.
On a regular day, not for, yeah.
Red Rabbit showed out yesterday. Sure.
Well, it's in the next.
Check references.
Mhm.
They knew what they were doing. That's like savvy marketing.
And also just to add on to the food vending experience, our parents and kids are always giving us feedback about the lunch every single year since I've been here. We've actually had about 5 different food vendors since I've been here. But it was good so parents can know that we're always listening and always just constantly monitoring to see if this is what the kids like. And so it was, and the kids also were a part of it and went home and told their parents, we have, we were at Costco tasting food at every booth. So parents know that we are responding to feedback about food and we're always constantly trying to monitor if it's the best program for our kids.
And vendors need to know that they're competing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
These aren't easy rubber stamp contracts.
And they're
Our
required.
did not win yesterday.
Yeah.
I know that they provide meals to other schools and things like that. So do they also rent space from us because they utilize our kitchen? Would it be the same setup for the new vendor or how does that work?
So the rental is a great question. So Genuine Foods does currently pay rent to Perry Street because Genuine Foods uses the industrial kitchen Perry Street has to make meals for other schools that they serve. So the benefit of that is frankly, we never have meals that arrive late because they don't need to deliver. If we don't continue with Genuine Foods, we would have to talk to them and see whether they wanted to continue renting space, which they could. That's outside of the lunch contract. Another vendor would probably not want to rent space from us because they already probably have space that they're using to make their meals. The other 2 contracts we're working on, my colleague Jennifer is taking the lead on, is we've got the 2 renters, Sojourner Truth and St. Jerome's. So St. Jerome's has asked us for a 1-year extension, and they're the group that rents on that side of the building. Sojourner Truth is on this side of the building. Sojourner Truth has 2 agreements with us. One is the space that Lamb used to occupy, which is that whole wing over there. They have a separate facility use agreement, which is what we're negotiating, where they rent also some classroom spaces, the old library, and that's on a year-to-year basis. And so those are the 2 contracts that we're going to be renewing with them.
What's our estimated, like, kind of timeline to button those things up?
Like the next 2-3 weeks, and Andrew's gonna help take a look at a few of those things. We talked about that yesterday in finance committee, but like the next 3-4 weeks, we should be done with those.
Are we far apart?
No. We're drafted them. The St. Jerome's contract has been the same price for the last 5 years without any escalation. And so one of the things we've talked to them about is like, we do need to increase because their contract is a flat fee, inclusive of the utilities, inclusive of trash and everything else. And as you can imagine, in the last 5 years,
Everything's going up.
everything has gone up for Perry Street.
How much would we potentially be losing without the kitchen rental space for the food vendor?
The rental space for the Genuine Foods is only $5,000 a month. So it's not like huge impact on the budget where all of a sudden, yeah.
There's a boy.
Yes, whereas St. Jerome's and Sojourner Truth is $360,000 a year.
Got it. Slightly different.
Slightly different. No, combined.
They have their own cafeteria, they don't utilize.
They don't use, no.
Can the finance committee give a quick update on rent abatement and where we are?
A few slides.
All right, well, before we go there then, can Can you all send copies of the EdOps contract and I know they're not required, it doesn't require both of renewals, so like just see the terms and
Absolutely.
all of that, just.
Yep.
We have some members who probably have never seen any
Yep.
of our contracts, as I'm like looking at the squares on the screen.
Sorry, I'm just gonna write that down
Yeah,
so I don't
sure.
forget,
That'd be helpful.
since I can't type on my computer. Yeah. So I'm gonna talk about enrollment and I'm gonna go back to the bond because that's on here. So enrollment, right now, so the budget target is 395 kids. As of spring break, we had 210 kids registered. Kids, and families have until May 1 to do registration, who came in through the lottery. So right now, 199 returning kids are registered, 11 new kids were registered. Last year at this point, there was 144 registrations. There are an additional 62 students who have started the registration process, which means they've logged in, they've submitted some of the forms, but not all of it. And that's 58 new students for returning students. We have another 158 kids who haven't done anything yet, but again, they have until May 1. Not everybody is eager. And so that's where we are with enrollment right now. I think the thing to also recognize, so the screenshot on the right-hand side shows you the number of applications citywide every year in the lottery for all DC public and DC charter schools. And so that last bar is 2026, which is this enrollment season we're having in right now. And what you can see right away is that this spring, the city as a whole had a significantly fewer applications. And so so you can kind of see before COVID in 2020, the city was getting about 25,000 applications. Since COVID, it then dropped to 19,000, went back up to 22, peaked at 23 in 2024, and has been on a decline every single year. And this is for pre-K through 12 students across charters and DCPS. And there's a few things happening here, right? As a city, one, we are seeing immigration policies have an impact. The city saw about 20% fewer Spanish language applications this season than last year. So there's a fear of folks who are not coming in. If you remember a while ago, we had the migrant buses coming to DC, and Perry Street, as Rachel knows, took some of those kids who were being bused into DC as migrants. That is no longer happening. And so those families are not here. And the impacts on the federal government have changed some people's living patterns here in DC. And so there's a citywide reduction in applications. And then this next chart shows you by grade level, 2025 on the right, 2026 on the left. And what you see is specifically in pre-K 3 and pre-K 4. So citywide applications dropped by about 1,400 total this spring. 382 of that was in pre-K 3, 382 of that was in pre-K 4. So about half of the decline in all applications is happening in pre-K 3, pre-K 4. And so over time, like we are going to see, and you can see the yellow bars, how many seats are available citywide. And you see these huge gaps between the number of people applying for seats in pre-K 3, pre-K 4, and how many seats are actually available. And we're seeing the biggest declines in pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 citywide.
So we're growing our capacity in those grades, but applications are not matching?
So the city has more seats
Kids.
than kids.
Why?
Usually folks are clamoring for free pre-K. Now, it'd be interesting to see if there was a ward breakdown. With that. I feel like those
What
will,
about this school? How are we dealing with a similar issue around like capacity that far outnumbers our demand?
I mean, we could open up another preschool classroom. We closed one this spring or this fall because we only had 8 kids in one of them, right?
Right.
So like this is a citywide issue, but it is also happening here at Perry Street where the number of pre-K 3 entry students has gone down as this picture in the city has also shifted because we have 3,000 more seats available now in pre-K 3 citywide than actual kids applying. So, you know, if you took this chart and if you pulled it up for like 2019, the yellow bar would be below.
Way lower.
Yeah. Like it has supply and demand has completely flipped it in the city. And in 2000, no, it is not.
Right, I'm like, okay.
The
so
other-
many questions.
The other big shift is in 2018, the city changed its policy So that now if you are a private preschool or a private licensed daycare, and you serve 3 and 4-year-olds, you can get city funding, just like we get from uniform per pupil for those kids. So if I'm a parent who sends my kids to Communikids or Bright Horizons, I now the city will pay for my 3 and 4-year-old in that private.
That is a shift.
Right.
Bright Horizons used to not take it.
And so there's about 1,100 families or 1,100 kids right now who the city is paying for them to be in private preschools. So, you could look at that number and be like, okay, well, 1,100 kids
Yeah.
are in
Where
private.
they go.
Where did they go? They're in private, they're Communikids, they're in private preschools that the
So
city is paying.
Data doesn't count them, even though the funds are going?
Correct. Correct. So there's a shift, like the supply and demand has completely flipped in pre-K.
That is something.
No,
I'm usually on top of that. I didn't know that.
I'm sorry, so because of all of this data, and I know that our budget is driven by the 395 number, is that still viable as a goal with all of these factors?
Yes, because we were conservative in the enrollment, and so
Yeah, I was gonna say, tell me when you're ready for questions in general.
we set our pre-K 3 target at 25 for this year. Which is in line with where we are right now. That number used to be closer to 50, as Danielle remembers. And so we have lowered that number exactly in that line to say, like, what is realistic versus pipe dreams?
I have a question.
So I see you pointed out that our current students registered is higher than it was last year. But last year, did we hit our number?
We did not hit our number last year. That's why, if you remember in the fall, we had to make some shifts because we had budgeted for 435 and we came in at 400.
So what's the plan if we yet again don't hit our number this year? What adjustments do we think are on the horizon? Or do we have like a short list of what adjustments we'd be considering?
So if you look at those targets, I mean, the real question is going to just be similar to this year, is like, do we have a grade level where there's so few kids, we're not going to have 2 sections? Because right now we're planning 2 sections across every grade level. But I don't think this will happen. But if kindergarten was going to be like 12 kids next year for some bizarre reason, then we might have to close the kindergarten section like we did this year for pre-K. We won't have any like sense of that until well into July because that enrollment season continues. I think from a budget perspective, there's enough room, there's breathing room, so it's not, we'll get to the budget in a couple of slides, but it is not a picture where like the school can't make payroll.
Right, I didn't
Yeah,
anticipate
yeah.
that. I just mean like, we know we made some adjustments that maybe didn't have significantly material impact, but we knew what they were. Have we thought about what they would be yet? And it's fine if the answer is not yet. Alicia came off mute for a second. Did you have something to say?
I do. So I'm looking at this 158
Oh,
students.
Alicia, we can't hear you, but I don't know if it's us.
Alicia, it's us.
Can you
Is it
hear me?
us or,
Yeah,
let me see.
hold on. Lucy.
Sorry, I'm trying to move my cursor to the right. Yeah, sideways. Alicia, can you try again?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, no, hold on.
It's about 100 and.
Try one more time for us.
Can you hear me?
No, sorry, we're gonna figure this out. Bear with us.
And Alicia, I can hear you.
We go.
So-
You can hear me, Kelly, but they can't hear us in the
Oh,
room.
Now we can.
We're
Now
good.
good.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
Apologies, it was us.
good morning, everyone. I have a question about this 158 students have not started process. What are we doing about the 135 students that are actual returning students? Are we reaching out to these families? Is it a resource issue? Can they not complete the forms? Do they not have what they need to complete the forms? Like, what is the plan for those? Because my thing is, you need to hit those first because they're currently enrolled.
So this year, the enrollment process and the reminders and the intent to return survey, in all of my years from, I guess I've been at Parachute about 7 years now, this is the first year that it's been this early. So I think that speaks to the 210 that we had versus 144 last year. But What I also know is that in this school particularly, a lot of people came in to do their paperwork before. We've been getting weekly reminders, Class Dojo. I've gotten texts, I've gotten emails. It seems like it's like inundated, and I'm actually one of those who has not started the process. I just did my intent to return, but I just pushed it to the last date. But I know that they are being, the only other thing that I can think of that we could do is something tangible for kids to take in their book bag. But
Right.
all of the electronic things I know have been done because I've been bombarded with it myself.
Or
I
even
sounds like you're about to do a residency today while you're here. I should
I-
probably do it.
Go ahead, Alicia.
or even do a friendly competition. I mean, I was a principal, as you all know, and registration, re-registering was always a hiccup for us. But we did friendly competitions between the classes, but also sending things home paper-wise, because not everybody checks their emails.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and
Yeah.
so I think have the kids invested in the process. Don't you want your friends to come back? Like, let's talk about this and maybe post it around the school, you know, whatever class gets the most enrollment by May 1st or whatever it is. You know, there's a small prize or whatever that's tangible that you could financially do. But I think you really need to hit that 158 students or the 135.
Yes.
The 135 plus that 58.
And the 92, those are people who were matched with us on the lottery?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and just one, I 100% agree. The 92 that were matched on the lottery, we are bringing those families in for breakfasts and all that good stuff. But for the 158 and the other group you mentioned, we 100% agree we have to do something different with those families. We're switching gears starting this week. So for the 158 and that other group you mentioned, we're actually going to bring those families in for a family meeting. So in that meeting, they're going to get their child's academic progress, what's going on with the child. And in that meeting, we're going to open up the computers and start re-enrollment off. Because what we're finding is that parents are waiting until it's inside of their tunnel, inside of their emergency space before they're registering, which is leaving us at like kind of a lag. But we're going to try to meet the parents where they are and bring them actually to us and physically sit there and register, re-enroll for school with them, so we can just get it out the way for them. Understanding that life is tough and hard and everybody has 1,000 things going on, and we may not be the first priority for everybody, but we're going to bring them in and make it a priority for everybody to get this number up before school is over, so we can see some more progress.
Right, a sense of urgency because, you know, my thing is if you only have this many available seats, they need to understand that, oh, well, if you didn't re-enroll, your seat is going to be gone next year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a parent, that's like, oh, okay, I got to hurry up and do this. So putting those numbers, letting those parents see those live numbers, I think is important.
Especially the 92 new students, like, oh, a new person could take my spot if I don't prioritize enrollment.
And actually, I think that the board, we should give you all actually regular updates about enrollment, not just at the next board meeting, but I do want to email you all after we meet with all the families, bring people in, when we shift our gears to figure out how to increase enrollment faster. We're going to send you all updates to let you all know exactly where we are in time and space to see if our efforts paid off. So we're not waiting for the next board meeting to hear the information.
Thank you. Other questions on enrollment? All right. Moving on to some really exciting news. So Perry Street learned on March 30th that it was awarded the Comprehensive Literacy Support Grant, which is federal grant that goes down to states. Generally on our team worked with Ivy and Rachel and the team here and wrote that grant. This is for $1.7 million over the next 4 years, which is super exciting. It is a little bit over $400,000 a year that it will come out to. And the goal of this grant is to improve K-5 literacy and focus a lot on both the educator and system improvements. And so the grant, as it was written, one of the biggest things about this grant is that it can fund training and development, but it cannot fund direct student support. So you can't fund an interventionist or a teacher to work with kids because the grant requires the development of staff rather than direct support to kids. And so the grant that was written, has 2 additional FTEs for Perry Street. One would be a literacy coach in K-2 and special education. There's a lot of funding for training of teachers, especially around letters and Orton Gilligan training. And the grant also requires you to have a program manager to manage the entire grant process. So we will be putting into the budget for next year 2 new FTE roles that are supported by this grant. And the other piece of this is, and this is not anything Perry Street did, but this award is supposed to go back to October 1, 2026. OSSI did not award the grants until April. And that's because of just internal things at OSSI. And so all of the schools who were awarded the grant are now doing what's called budget amendments with OSSI, because otherwise like Perry Street would have to spend $445,000 in the next 4 months, which is, it could be done, but it would not be like effective spending. And we certainly couldn't hire 2 new FTEs and pay them $200,000 each for 3 months. That would be not good. And so OSSI is allowing schools to carry over money from FY26 into next year and do budget amendments. And so we did that process last week with OSSI, and we're waiting to find out how much we can move over. Because this was an OSSI challenge. They awarded this grant way too late for folks.
Is there a version of hacking that to where you could have either fractional or consultants for that kind of gap amount that gets stretched out to kind of overlap while you're doing the hiring while also accounting for that money? Does that make sense?
I think so. So what we did is submitted a budget amendment to say we are going to spend this down from April to September, and what is realistic to spend down, and move that next money into FY27.
Okay.
So that.
I was just trying to feel like there's a way that you can offset the use it or lose it.
Oh, we're not going to lose it.
They're gonna let us roll it over.
We're gonna roll it over. We're not losing it.
Oh.
The losing part is not an option.
All right.
No, we're gonna be able to roll over.
Okay.
And that, no, no, we're not losing that.
Alicia, did you come?
So- I have a question. So when you say roll over, are you gonna be able to roll over the entire $445,000?
No,
next year?
we're waiting on OSSI to say how much we can roll over, and whatever we can't roll over, then we're gonna focus on what we can do to spend down for FY26.
Okay.
And that just for full, like, that is not unique to Perry Street. That is all the schools who got this grant, because OSSI did not award this until April rather than in October. So I think stay tuned. There's a lot more happening, but super, super exciting. And we started some of the preliminary conversations to figure out how to get this all up and running now. Finance committee. So the biggest thing, or one of the big things that we talked about yesterday was the bond. And so Sydney, this is what you were asking about. The bond that the school has is due on May 1. And so I met with Eagle Bank and Wilmington Trust to make sure we are on track and to start all the paperwork that has to happen to get that bond paid off on May 1. We initiated the arbitrage review, which is a report that has to be done and a review of the bond to make sure the school is on track. What will happen is the funds right now are at Eagle Bank in 2 separate accounts. There's a sinking fund account and there's a debt service account. Those funds on May 1, because the bond is coming to maturity, will be transferred from Eagle Bank to Wilmington Trust to pay off the bond. There's an excess of about $1 million in that sinking fund account, and the debt service reserve fund did not have to get used because the school actually did what it was supposed to do and had the right balance. So that money will go back from those 2 Eagle accounts back to Perry Street's operating accounts. And so we're now working through all the paperwork to make sure all of that will be done. The important thing is the school has all the funds that need to be used to pay off the bond, and the school did everything correct in terms of the terms of the bond. We also have from the Department of General Services, which is the DCGS, now a credit memo saying that you all will get rent abatement for the next 3.5 years.
We have that now.
Yes, we do have that now.
Okay.
And so right now I was with these guys again yesterday. Everything looks like we will be on track to get all the funds transferred and all the paperwork done for May 1.
And do we have like a tentative plan of action for the 5 years and like, how are we prepared? Like, is our goal to just keep running the same play every 5 years and qualify for rent abatement and then
Good question.
like
So-
cover pay?
Yeah, no, good question. So
I'd be fine with that if that were the answer, but.
yeah, so the landlord of this building, for folks who, don't live and breathe this stuff, the landlord of this building is the DC government, DC
Okay.
General Services. The lease agreement between Perry Street and DGS says that Perry Street has the right to be here for 30 years and then renewal terms of 15 years after that. The leasehold improvements in the lease that Perry Street had were good for 15 years. There is not a process by which to get rent abatement in this new term or in the second half of the lease. We talked about this in the finance committee. Some charter schools who have leases, whose leases were done later after Perry Street, because Perry Street was one of the newer leases, were able to get rent abatement credit for the duration of the 30 years. So once we do this payoff in May and kind of meet that first benchmark, we want to go back to DGS and see would they be willing to allow for rent abatement in the next terms or the next 15 years, because that is a precedent they've set with other charter schools.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Perry Street, once the first 3.5 years of rent abatement goes away, will be paying about $1 million, I think $1 million a year in rent that is not currently paying. And at the same time would have to continue investing in the building. The other thing we're working on, and we talked about this with the finance committee, is right before spring break that Thursday, we launched a capital assessment. And so we have a company who right now is doing an assessment of the entire building to analyze things like the HVAC system, the roof, the mechanical systems, because we haven't had one done in a long time, and to really think about what are the physical investments we would need to make that will be required in the next 5, 10, 15 years to maintain this building. Both because it's good to have that, but also to understand that and potentially use that with DGS to say, we have to invest $6 million or whatever it is. How can we come to terms with potential rent abatement? Other questions or thoughts or comments from folks on this? We will certainly email folks on May 1 just to let you know that everything went as like it should, because I don't want anyone losing sleep over $12 million not getting paid out. In terms of FY26, right now, nothing has really changed. The school's cash position is very strong. The school expects to be in a FAR score, which is that financial report card score from PCSB, around a 93, which is, well above the green zone. And the school's continuing to perform above where targets are financially. I will say that yesterday, and I don't know if anybody in the finance committee wants to talk about the two things the finance committee looked at and approved yesterday in terms of FY26 spending. If not, I'm happy to do it. But the committee yesterday discussed, because the school is performing better in the budget than anticipated, is doing $1,500 retention bonuses for all staff this year. So that for staff who are on staff right now and choose to return for next year, giving them a $1,500 retention bonus. And so that is something the finance committee talked about yesterday, since the school is just doing better than anticipated. And the other investment we talked about yesterday is investing in the auditorium, because Rachel and Danielle can talk about the state. Do you want to talk about the seats?
Yeah.
Replace those
Is
seats.
that all staff?
All staff,
paid?
all staff.
Okay, good.
I know, the seat. Now, we want to change how the auditorium looks and feels for one really big reason. We had several events in the auditorium recently, and after those events, everyone in the building, teachers in the hall, are like, Crouch, we are the most happy when we're doing things like this. Perry Street feels the best when we're doing these things, when we're having assemblies, when we're having events, when kids are being proud on stage. Like, it just makes everyone feel so good here. And all of us are really into that anyway. So we want to redo the auditorium and refocus what parents are coming in here for. We want to focus on heavily on performing arts and get kids and parents in the building for that reason. Now, you all have been in the auditorium in the last year, so you know we have some challenges with the seats.
Yeah.
They are from 1920. Literally.
Put a hole in my dress is what
I
I'm.
know.
Yeah, yep,
I
yep.
had a splinter one time on my thigh. When I first got here, I was like, oh. But when we change it around, it'll just be a beautiful space that we can just show off our kids and teachers to our parents. And then we think that it'll help us with enrollment and just getting kids in the building from word of mouth.
Mhm.
When we put on our lip sync battle, people are still talking about that. So when we put on shows like that consistently, have fun in this building, more kids will want to come to Perry Street.
Could also become a venue.
Community
for-
aspect to it.
Well, the AKAs already had their chapter meetings here, but that's through Tree.
Gotcha.
So we definitely could be, you know.
The Deltas should have.
Then you can start charging for
You should have a
programs.
chapter, so go right ahead.
Yeah, see?
Go right, I know. Alicia's like, don't make eye contact. So what's the plan for, like, is there a proposal that will come our way? Do we
Yeah,
need to
so
do,
the-
like vendor evaluation selection?
Yeah, so the finance committee approved using up to 600,000. We have an initial quote for seats that Rachel and I have looked at. We're gonna start figuring out with vendors what we can do and then come back to the finance committee and look at what are the options that we can do. The seats is the number one, I think, priority right now.
Yes. Just adding cushions over this one.
Well, so the challenge with the current seats is you cannot buy those seats anymore.
Correct.
They're not produced.
Yeah.
And if you've been in there, there's a lot of broken seats. And so what has happened is they have moved seats from the back to the front and used the seats from the balcony. But they're, for those who have not been in there, like they're old, they're like sitting on plywood. And so the first priority is to replace the seats and the carpeting, because the carpeting is also
Very old.
could
Repair,
use-
replace, refurbish.
Yes.
Figure out what type of
Yeah.
proposals and options
Yeah.
that are available at the
Yeah.
right price points.
Yep.
This comes out of committee to a vote.
It does not need to come out of committee to a vote.
I would like to request that it come out of committee to a vote.
Definitely. Do you want that vote now or do you?
No,
Oh, no,
especially
okay.
now, I think maybe vendor selection where we can
Yep.
kind of see like cost,
Mhm.
scope, what we're getting for our money.
Yep. Yep.
And so while y'all are thinking, we were going to spend some time this summer really thinking about what we want to use the auditorium for and how we can use the chart advantage, not to rent it out, but to get families in here and to figure out how we can use it for re-enrollment and like making sure kids come back. And there are no programs in DC right now that are like literally performing arts. There used to be Wedge,
Mm-hmm.
they closed that, but if we really like hone in on like something, and
Mhm.
parents are always like, are you STEM? Are you
What's
bilingual?
your
Are
lane?
you, what is your lane? And since we do performing arts very well, and we can take that lift on because it's not, we're not impeding on the self-contained classroom, we're not like getting in the way of instruction. It's just an additional thing we're trying to do to increase our presence in these.
There's also
our
a
education.
development and corporate partnership play there.
Ooh.
Eco-friendly, the revamping,
How we should-
solar, big windows, all these things. And so, how do we turn that 600 into 1.6?
Yeah.
In-kind contributions and all those different things.
Giving.
And really make that, a strong encouragement of bidders. Who else are you bringing into this? You know, and what are your matching capabilities? So yeah, this can definitely be a greater board conversation and a way for us to kind of use our networking muscle as well.
Love that. So to be continued.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now moving on to the FY 26, so folks know where we are. So
Can I
we,
just say one more thing
yeah.
real quick about enrollment?
Go ahead. No, you go. Go.
Oh, for enrollment, a big thing we lost that we used to have was free aftercare. And while in enrollment season, teachers and parents saying, you know, the problem is you all used to have free aftercare and you don't. So now we are trying to partner with Beacon House. It's an aftercare program in DC. It's not set in stone. We have not signed, we're only at the initial meetings to figure out if they can come here and provide free aftercare for our students for next school year, which would also include like summer camps and things like that. They just got like some contract with the commander, so now they're like big time and everywhere. But they do want to have conversations to figure out how we can do free after It has to happen quick.
What's the name of it?
Speaking house.
Oh, by DC.
Oh, I was about to say they operate really with DC Prep. It's not with
I mean,
DC Prep, but they like share like building space. So if we're able to secure free aftercare, that's another thing we're going to literally tell the whole
That's huge.
entire world. So that families can come to Perry Street, and then parents who felt like they had to leave Perry Street because we stopped offering free aftercare, we could try to draw some more of those people in as well.
Sydney, did you have?
Yes, separate topic though, back to the grant in terms of the scope and what we can spend on, is there, so I was thinking kind of all the it's not a lot of money to spend, but it's a fair amount over 4 years. Another thing that stands out when you're talking about kind of designing programmatic response is a data manager.
No,
We can't, not
No.
even if it's specific to this literacy program or to literacy in general.
nope.
What's the thought process behind that? Like, do you know why they say no to it?
I mean, I don't know, but it's incredible. It's very specific as to what you're allowed to spend money on. And so not data people, not instructional, not interventionist. It can only be new hires who do coaching and development of teachers.
Okay. Okay. I don't like that, but okay.
Oh, White House.
No, in general.
Yeah, call the White House. Yeah.
So you say like reading coaches, curriculum.
Yeah, we can't do interventionists, we can't do a reading teacher, we can't do, because it's supposed to be all about development and not intervention.
Development of the staff.
Adults. So you're not allowed to use
So
anything,
we can teach.
Nope.
The staff how to do data?
Yeah, we can.
Can we
Teach
do
us
that?
that.
not data, because it's got to be literacy. So the
Literacy data, no, not close enough. Okay, I'm
But
just,
the reading coach could teach.
the
you
reading
that.
coach, yes, the reading coach could. Mhm.
okay. I'm just curious.
And
I might come back to that another day.
Yeah.
It's kind of ideal though, because that person have hands on everybody and they can
Right.
focus on that. Like for instance, me and the APs are kind of stretched. We focus on everything.
Right.
If we had a reading coach literally just focusing on reading in classrooms all day, developing teachers, more kids would grow than just having one teacher teaching 5 kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to
actually-
stretch us into areas that we don't currently have coverage or could be. You know,
I
amplified,
like
data
that.
driven. I saw the thing on here that said data driven, which is really what's piqued
Yep.
my thinking. I wanted to really ask, like, what is that? What do they mean when they say it? I know what I mean when I say it. But that's what I was thinking is like, how can we staff it with people who have like a larger breadth across the student
I'd like to see an
population?
angle where we are empowering the aides, increasing their capacity,
Mhm.
honing in on teacher fellows, apprenticeships. So you're having the added bonus of bringing another staffing pipeline. The people that'll become the permanent subs.
So we couldn't use that grant for this because it has to be people who are developing others.
So train the trainer is not,
You could hire a coach, but you couldn't use the money to hire the fellows or hire the.
I thought you
Aides.
said like to bring on.
So we're allowed to bring on an instructional coach and we're allowed to bring on a program manager.
Go back to the slide just so that they can see it. Sorry.
No,
I
no.
have it open right here, but. Okay, so professional development, started that teachers, coaches, and school leaders, professional development.
Yeah, so we're allowed to spend it on like Orton Gilligan training, we're allowed to spend it on letters training. Those are the few things that were in the grant.
Like DC Public Library could do that sing, talk, read thing. Never mind.
But this is to say.
There's a whole bunch of literacy
Raise
things, so
to
just-
fund the things we wanna see.
Yeah.
Like, it just means this is the limitations of this grant.
It's freedom.
I get on my soapbox and beat my drum and all the other turns of phrase around like. Fundraising, corporate and foundation giving specifically is like, there's nothing to say that we can't decide. That we want these programs and these
Absolutely.
programs are necessary, whether it's performing arts or literacy, like we can pick our various lanes. That call on and lean into our strengths or help us
Yeah.
carve out but some of this we have to just talk about where the funding comes from. We thought this might be an opportunity to address a particular gap. It's not, that's fine, but it doesn't
But
mean
it
don't do
is
the
though,
thing.
because this is gonna address our systems gap, like, it's
Yes,
not
I
gonna address
noticed
the
that
direct
too.
people
Yeah.
gap, but it'll create better systems in our school that will impact the direct people.
Right,
And
right.
us actually, I don't know where I fall into the grant, but.
Your salary, but.
So data-driven instruction, like, if not for a person who to some degree is dedicated to data, what does that look like? Like, from a systems perspective, like, how are we ensuring that instruction is data-driven? And y'all don't have to answer that today.
Oh, I'm gonna answer that though.
I know you. Not too sure.
I only want to answer that because we are very data driven, and I know that's a buzzword, but let me tell you an example of how we're data driven. When we took the MAP test in the winter, Larita, my 10th sport coach, sat me down and said, "So yeah, this is the data for the winter, and it's not good here, it's not good here." Like, we literally went through every single class. From there, the leadership team got up. We started a quick lab feedback forum. We were in classrooms back to back. 100% of our labs start on time right now because of that data meeting I had with Larita about, because I didn't want my data to look bad. So of course I'm like, oh, wait, hold on, let me get started. And now the labs are completely different because of those data meetings. So while it didn't impact, say for instance, ELA directly, it impacted our systems overall, and we all kind of like raised the bar a little bit based off of like the data I was forced to look at, my data meeting. So yes, when we say data driven, it is a fact. And we have actual people who are crunching numbers behind the scenes for us. So I don't sit and crunch numbers in Excel. I wait for Jessie to show me her Excel documents, and then Marita interprets them for us. So,
Right.
so data driven is definitely a thing here.
Perfect. Thank you.
No, absolutely. So just a few things
real-
for the FY
real quick.
27 budget because, oh, I'm sorry.
Just real quick before we leave that, because Sydney, you bring up a good point about the data-driven piece. Did they outline, I would think they would, but if you don't have the answer right now, that's fine, the reporting requirements for this?
Yeah,
Is-
so I don't remember them off the top of our head, but most federal grants require annual reporting, but I can go back and look if there's anything different on this one.
Yeah, I'm more so interested in the specifics, because if they are mentioning that data-driven piece, Sydney, you have a point. I mean, they need to be able to assess what the impact is of this effort, which may be looking at how the data of the students, if they improve, if the teachers improve. So what's the measures that they'll ask for in that regard, which then may mean we need to consider how we're collecting data and who's doing that and what efforts are being undertaken in that way. So having an idea of what the requirements are for the funds would be helpful.
Great.
And the last thing I'm gonna say, I know I'm talking too much, but the last thing I'm gonna say is one thing I was thinking about is if a reading coach, because we are data driven and we respond to data immediately all the time, if we had a reading coach who said, hey, there are 4 kids in the class I just observed who need to do X, Y, and Z in order to meet their math goal by the end of the school year, we're gonna respond to that. So while that reading coach is not directly teaching those kids, she has her eyes on all the kids, telling us to teach.
And that's part of our presentation.
You know,
and
more
portfolio.
multiple people can respond
Otherwise,
to
we
her.
do it all five.
Exactly.
Right.
So I welcome the $1.7 million. You can add a little bit to my salary, but you know, other than that.
So moving on to FY 27, so we're in the midst of developing and finalizing the budget. So for comparison purposes for FY 26 to FY 27, we're looking at enrollment target of 395. The city so far has said that there will be a 2.55% increase in the UPSFF, but because we're anticipating 5 fewer students, that will actually end up being $200,000 less in revenue. The city has also said that charter schools are getting 0% increase in the facility allotment. And so that is being adjusted down. And so that's marginally 15,000. The other big chunk of money that we will not be seeing in FY 27 is the OSSI Educator Fund, which is funding that was there in FY 27 to make up the difference between what charters were getting and what DCPS is getting. One of the big things, and if you look at the slide, if you look at that DCPS inequity bullet, which is the 3rd bullet down, so DCPS has labor agreements with its unions, and so in order to meet the agreements, and have a balanced budget for FY 27 for DCPS, what the city is doing is moving $59 million of costs that were part of the DCPS budget in FY 26 out of the DCPS budget and into the Department of General Services. So the DCPS budgets, for example, will no longer have to cover utilities. Charter schools still have to pay their water, gas, electric bills. The second thing that the city is doing this year is it is putting $555 million in capital funding for DCPS. Whereas the charters are getting 187 million. DCPS serves roughly 52% of the kids, charters serve 48%. DCPS is getting 4 times the amount of money for capital funding. What that is creating is an inequity piece between DCPS and charters where we can say the UPSFF is the same because it is per kid, but what DCPS has to cover out of that UPSFF is not the same. It's significantly less. It's, $600 million less. That said, on the expense side, we are able to increase the pay scale next year for about 2% on top of the step increase. So the average increase for teachers will be 4.55. The pay scale next year for teachers at Perry Street will range from 64,000 to 126,000. And the average teacher salary will be 98,000 right now. Which is, I think one of the things that's happened, and Rachel has seen this firsthand, is the school used to have a lot more newer to school teaching teachers, and right now is a predominantly seasoned teacher portfolio. And so as teachers have stayed on, like Miss Anderson for a long time, Miss Moy for a long time, Miss Johnson has been here for long time. Mr. Cole has been here 20 years, I think. They are now at the very top of that pay scale, which is at that 126 range. Questions kind of about this. The other things that we're pointing at FY 27 we discussed with the finance committee is any funding we know is not guaranteed, we're not putting in the budget. So for example, we have gotten the OSSI HIT grant, the city schools grant for the last 5 years. It is likely we'll get those grants, but we are not putting them in the budget until we have grant letters. And then we would add in the expenses, so it would be a 1-for-1. We did include the Learn 24 grant in there. It's something we have gotten. We are allowed to apply for the renewal. And the expenses are in there. In the likelihood we would not get that grant, which is very, very minimal, we would just remove those expenses from the Learn 24 grant. We are near finalizing the FY 27 budget, but the big kind of 2 outstanding things is just figuring out the grant money for CLSD and what we need to put in for FY 27, pending OSSI's approval. And then removing the debt service is kind of the next big thing, which we're working on next week, and then should be able to present it in May to the committee for review. Where we're looking right now.
The question about just the last bullet about updating the revenue and expenses based on budget. Okay, so when it comes to the grant, can I request that the finance committee and the academic excellence committee, who Alicia signed off, she don't know I'm about to put her in charge of it.
I think she's not on anymore.
I know, that's what I said. She's not on. But surprise. Can we just ask that they work together on like the plan for how the school will spend those funds? Like, I think there's probably a triangulation around ops, academics, and finance.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep. So where we are is we expect having a balanced budget for FY 27 once we do the last maneuvering we need to do. And so we feel, the school's in a good position, I should say. The other thing we need to do for FY 27 is bring in the money once we have the bond docs on May 1, so that we have final numbers that we can put in for the money that's coming back to Perry Street. But we'll end up with a positive net income, because right now you see that negative 284 down there. That we have not taken out the 718,000 for rent. So once we take that 718,000 number out, that'll be a positive 500 number. Questions on where things are with the budget?
Slide 16. Probably just go up 3 to one more. Yes. On this slide where we had FY 26 enrollment was 400. these are still targets, right?
400 was actual enrollment for FY 26, so that's what we
Okay.
got counted for. 395 is the target for next year.
Okay, got it. That was a clarifying question. Okay.
Good, good, good. Real quick, other things, because I do want to make sure we get to the closed session. As I mentioned, we're doing the capital assessment. Danielle has also taken the lead on, if you look at the front of the building, the doors here are very nice and glass and got redone a few years ago. All the way to the left are still the old steel doors. There's 3 of them. They are broken, and the mechanisms by which to, you can no longer replace those doors because of how old they are, and so we are replacing those 3 doors to look like the front doors here. And so hopefully that'll happen by June, because they're on order. I think at this point, if you're okay with it, Sydney, I think we want to go into closed session because we have the 3 items.
Yes.
Uh,
The governance committee.
Was there any updates for governance? I'm sorry.
Aviola?
Yes, well, that's in closed session.
I was just gonna say, yep, okay, cool.
All right, so is there a motion to enter into closed session under section 2575B, subsection 10? Motion to move, is there a second? Second, all right. So we're gonna go to closed session. I'm gonna end the live stream, so give me 1 sec for those of you online so that I can get my cursor on the right screen.